Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. So, I want to say something right now that I may have spoken a little too soon as far as Geoworld. So now I kind of have mixed feelings on their figures. I'm not entirely sure what to think of them because I had reviewed 4 different Geoworld figures previously in a review, and I was kind of like 50-50. There was one in there that I thought was really nice, the Caudipteryx. Well, not really nice, but it was pretty darn nice. The Caudipteryx that was in that review. But for the majority of the other figures, they weren't really that great. There was a fairly decent Dilophosaurus, but I kind of dismissed the line as like not really being something that I'm all that interested in. However, I was recently searching online for a few different dinosaur lots as I usually do, and I came upon one that included some Geoworld figures, one of which is the figure that we're looking at right here, the Amargasaurus. And I thought, well, why not? I might as well give it a shot. I think the lot was like $8 or $9, and that was including shipping, so I wasn't really losing out on much if I didn't like the figures, and I do really like Amargasaurus, so the immediate inclusion of an Amargasaurus really had my interest piqued, so I went ahead, I pulled the trigger, and once I actually got the box in the mail and pulled the figures out, I must say I'm a lot more impressed with this Amargasaurus and one other figure that I received than I thought I would be. So we're going to review the Amargasaurus today, and I will say again that it's not exactly an accurate depiction of an Amargasaurus, but it's still quite a decent looking figure. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at this very cool looking Geoworld Amargasaurus right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Amargasaurus, you can definitely see that the paint application is a little sloppy. You've got a pretty sloppily painted eye there. It doesn't look very good at all. But the actual detailing within looks fairly decent, considering the head sculpt is so small. It's got some fairly nice looking sculpt and detail. You can see the nostrils sculpted out up there in the front of the snout. You can also see the teeth in the mouth inside is fairly well done as far as the paint. It's a little sloppy, but it's extremely small. However, this is one area that I think looks a little weird for the Amargasaurus because I don't think the head sculpt really looks that accurate. I definitely don't think that the teeth really look that accurate. The teeth usually have kind of like a horse-like appearance on an Amargasaurus, and you don't really see that here displayed on this version. But I still think it looks fairly appealing. But once we actually start to move down into the neck, you can see some fairly nice looking skin texture included, as well as some nice paint application. There's not too much going on as far as the paintwork goes, but what is included I think actually looks quite nice. As well as the detailing up here of this almost sail-like appearance to the spines of the Amargasaurus also looks quite nice, and I do love the way they've painted it with kind of like this black stripe that runs down the course of the body. I think that was a really nice touch as far as the coloration of that area goes. Otherwise, it's not very colorful. Most times you see a little bit more color included in the spine area of the Amargasaurus, but you don't see that here on this version, and I actually think it still looks quite nice. Again, as we move down the body, the skin texture actually looks really quite nice, and then you can come down here, you can see the shoulder blade kind of protruding from the skin. As we move down the front leg here, you can see lots of really nice creasing in the skin, beautiful skin texture. As we move down into the foot has some fairly nicely painted nails. However, the nails and the feet in general are quite inaccurate here on the front of the Amargasaurus. So again, there are quite a few inaccuracies to the figure, but I think that overall it still has a really nice detail as far as the sculpt goes in most aspects, especially if you look at the skin texture here in the stomach. It really has that very large animal feel to the overall skin texture, and you've got lots of really nice skin wrinkles and everything here in the stomach, kind of showing the movement of the legs pushing together a little bit and bunching that skin up really quite nicely. The detailing, once again, of the upper side of the Amargasaurus continues to look really nice the entire way down. You have some beautiful skin texture and detailing throughout the rear leg as well, and you've got some beautiful musculature. You've got a kneecap present. As we move down into the rear foot, it looks nice as far as the nails and the way they've been painted. They also have a nice gloss coat to them, and you can see a little bit of color variation in the legs. It kind of tapers off from like this yellowish brown to like a lighter coloration, and then you also have some darker paint applied down here at the lower part of the foot. And then you move out the length of the tail, and again the skin texture looks quite nice, I will say that. As you run out the length of the tail isn't in any kind of like crazy dynamic position. It just comes pretty much straight out and then has a little bit of a curve to it, so I think that as well looks quite nice. If we look at the opposing side, The eye is also sloppily painted, but it looks a little better over here on this side as opposed to the previous side. Moving down the neck again, though, you can see the skin texture starts to pick up and looks really good. Once again, sporting that really large animal feel to the overall skin texture. Again, we have that stripe that runs through the spine area, that almost sail-like area of the Amargasaurus, and I think it definitely gives it a flashy appearance without using any type of flashy colors to it. We've got the shoulder blade protruding from the skin a little bit right there. You can see the leg coming down. It looks nice once again until you get to that foot, which is, again, not accurate at all. But it does have some nice paint to the nails, which is at least a plus, even if the foot does look very inaccurate. And then we come back up here. Once again, the skin texture, I think, of the stomach is one of my favorite areas of the figure. It looks really, really good. Once again, you can see the skin really bunched up here due to the legs kind of pushing together. It looks very nice. You can almost pick up on some osteoderms here and there on the Amargasaurus as well. Nice musculature once again on the rear leg. And again, the hip bone looks good right there. Nice and beautifully elaborated. You can see the kneecap. Again, as we move down to this rear foot, and the nails painted quite nicely over here. And then we come out the length of the tail, just like the opposing side. It does look quite nice as well. You also have some fairly decent detailing here on the underside of our Amargasaurus. So the sculpt work, as far as this one goes, is much, much better than a lot of the previous figures that I looked at, and I am much more impressed with the Geoworld figures after looking at this Amargasaurus. As far as a size goes on our Amargasaurus, from the tail to the head, you are going to see it come in at about 8 1/4 inches, or around 21 centimeters for a length, if the tape measure here would let go of the tail. And then for a height, a little under 3 inches, or around 7.5 centimeters for a size comparison. There's Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. And you can see next to our Amargasaurus that it is a pretty small figure, definitely a closer to smaller figure. It's actually close to the Attack Pack size range there. If you look at that Colovosaurus, it may even be a little smaller, a little bit longer due to the longer tail, but I think the overall body mass is a little smaller than an Attack Pack figure, so that should give you a pretty good idea that the figure is definitely on the smaller side, but really does sport some incredible detailing throughout for the small size. And for another size comparison, here is the Carnegie Collection Safari Ltd. Amargasaurus, and you can see that the two of these are almost the same size. They're very, very close, so they do actually look really quite cool with each other, although you can clearly see the style of both Amargasaurus figures is definitely quite different, but the size comparison is definitely very similar. So I am really quite impressed with this Geoworld Amargasaurus, way more than I expected to be. Again, when I actually pulled it out of the box, I was just almost immediately blown away, not because it's overly amazing or one of the best Amargasaurus figures that I've ever seen, because that is clearly not the case, but just because I kind of wrote Geoworld off a little bit in my previous reviews of their figures as being a decent company as far as their figures go, but not really anything that I think I should absolutely pursue. But now seeing this Amargasaurus, I may have changed my mind a little bit. Now I'm really quite intrigued, and they've definitely piqued my interest as far as searching for other, especially sauropods, but other Geoworld figures, and kind of buying a couple and seeing how they look in person, because as far as this Amargasaurus goes, I am definitely impressed. It's again not the best Amargasaurus figure you're going to find. It's also not one of the most amazing figures I've ever seen. But as far as an Amargasaurus goes, I think it's a fairly nice looking version of one. Again, there are some inaccuracies with the figure, but overall it's really nicely detailed, and I think it does have a very nice appearance overall. It definitely has a nice looking paint scheme, fairly natural looking paint scheme, and it has quite a few different color tones included, so as far as skin tone goes, it has a decent look in that department as well. There's definitely some sloppy paint. We can say the eyes are really quite sloppy. The teeth are a little bit sloppy, but the teeth are really small, so I'm okay with a little sloppiness there. But the eyes are almost inexcusable just because they are really, really sloppy, way worse than what you would normally see on a dinosaur figure. It's almost like Bullyland style eye paint with how sloppy that eye area looks. But moving past the eye area, I think the rest of the paint on the body looks really quite nice, has some very nice natural tones to it, and is nicely applied. Doesn't look like paint on a figure, it does look like body color. A little more paint on the figure as far as like variations of paint, maybe a little bit flashier colors up on the spine area of the Amargasaurus, I think could have made it a little more appealing, but even still, what is included, I personally do quite like. So it's definitely got my interest piqued, like I had stated before. I'm probably going to search out at least some more sauropods from Geoworld, but, just in general, I might find some other figures to review and look at and possibly add to my collection from them in the immediate future, because now that I do have this Amargasaurus in hand, I am quite interested to see how good some of the other figures that they have are. So if you would like to pick this up, I will do my best to find a link for you to include in the description for you to do just that. So make sure you check down there, pick this up if you are in fact interested, and also make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.